We enter this world empty-handed. And when our final moment arrives, we leave it just as we came, carrying nothing with us. But have you ever paused long enough to truly feel what this means? Not just understand it as a sentence, but feel the vibration behind it. Life, in its mysterious and uncompromising way, guarantees that everything we cling to, our achievements, our trophies, our dreams, the images we carefully construct, will eventually slip from our grasp. And the sooner we learn this truth, not as a punishment but as a natural law, the more gracefully we will move through our time on this earth. Yet most of us spend our lives building, chasing, accumulating. Some spend 50, 70, 80 years shaping a vision, status, comfort, wealth, recognition, only to realize at the threshold of departure that none of it can be taken along. And when that realization comes late, when it arrives uninvited at the edge of life, it can feel like an earthquake tearing through the soul. It hurts because we believed our creations were permanent. We believed our identity was solid. But the universe never agreed to that. What I'm sharing with you now on Master from Within is not an invention, not a philosophy I crafted to sound wise. It's an observation sharpened by years of watching people grow, stumble, rise, and eventually face the same truth we all must meet. It's an observation born from witnessing those who had everything, luxury, success, praise, yet still found themselves confronted by the essence of letting go. If life grants you abundance, enjoy it, truly enjoy it. Owning things is not a crime. Having dreams is not a flaw. Building a life that feels fulfilling is not against any spiritual path. But the hidden danger lies in a quieter place: attachment. The question has never been, what do you possess? The real question is, what among your possessions has begun to possess you? And once you see this, you realize the universe is not trying to punish you. It's not trying to take anything away from you out of cruelty. Life simply brings you the lesson you need, and it will bring it in a way that you, specifically, can understand. Maybe you'll get the mansion. Maybe you'll meet the partner who feels like the perfect companion. Maybe you'll build the dream you always envisioned. And then subtly or suddenly life adjusts your course, not out of malice but out of balance. Life whispers, we need to readjust your path. Because no matter how grand your outer world becomes, you are still being trained inwardly. The hindrances and the water analogy. Think of your life like a still lake. You are walking along it, aiming for a destination straight ahead. The water is calm. Your path is clear. Now imagine you reach out and touch the water because something caught your eye, because you wanted to pull something toward you or push something away. Instantly, ripples spread. The surface becomes disturbed. The path becomes less clear. That's what happens when we act from desire or aversion. The first great hindrance is sensory desire, the impulse to pull things toward you. A new pleasure, a new distraction, a new spark that promises immediate satisfaction. You see something you want and you reach for it, tugging it closer. Each time you do, you disturb your own waters. The second hindrance is ill will, the urge to push away what you dislike, a person you don't want to face, a message you don't want to open, a responsibility you want to escape. So you avoid, reject, resist, and in doing so, you push at the water again. But pushing creates the same ripple as pulling. Whatever you cling to will eventually drift away, because that is the nature of all things that arise. And whatever you try to avoid will eventually find a way to approach you, because resistance invites persistence. So the instruction is simple, but not easy. Don't touch the water unless you must. If you seek a peaceful journey, minimize your unnecessary ripples. Walk your path with clarity. Walk without compulsively pulling or pushing. Otherwise, your energy gets scattered across dozens of small disturbances, leaving you depleted and unfocused. This is the essence of don't pull, don't push. Don't cling, don't resist. Let things be as they are, while you continue to move forward. The cost of unbalanced energy. Unbalanced energy doesn't always show itself as something dramatic. More often it hides beneath the surface. It appears as anxiety, dissatisfaction, restlessness. It shows up as constantly searching but never feeling fulfilled, as overlooking the present moment because you're lost in a mental world of assumptions, memories, or illusions. Here's the simple truth that everyone, regardless of spiritual tradition, understands. We do not know if we will wake up tomorrow. We plan for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ahead. We make schedules, set goals, create visions. And planning is not wrong. But the only thing that is undeniably real is the moment you are experiencing right now. This breath, this heartbeat, this presence. The challenge of modern life is to balance vision with reality, to dream while staying grounded, to plan while remaining fully alive in the moment. Imagine this. You step outside of yourself for a moment and become the director of your own movie. You're sitting at a table writing the next chapter of your life. How do you want the scene after this moment to unfold? Do you imagine a version of yourself living in fear, insecurity, doubt, and dissatisfaction? Or do you imagine a version of yourself walking confidently into the next 50 years with clarity, peace, and purpose? Purpose does not come from comparison. It does not come from imitation. It emerges from the depths of your own nature. Not everyone is meant for the same path. Not everyone is meant for the same contribution. Some feel alive when they create. Some feel alive when they serve. Some feel alive when they explore. Some feel alive when they teach. What matters is not that you fit a universal mold. What matters is that your life feels authentically your own. The gift of simply experiencing life. Across all my years of training, guiding, observing, and teaching, I've come to believe something deeply. Simply being alive is a blessing beyond measure. Not because life is always easy, far from it, but because life gives us the full spectrum of experience. The joy, the heartbreak, the laughter, the tears, the victories, the losses, all of it is part of the tapestry. You may prefer one color over another, but the painting needs them all. There is no sky without shadow, no sunrise without night. And one of the greatest mistakes we make is taking our existence too seriously in the wrong way. We cling to identities, images, stories we created. We forget that we are the director, the actor, and the observer all at once. Try stepping outside of your identity for a moment. Imagine your life as a film. Not everything goes perfectly in a film, not even in the best ones. The struggles make the story meaningful. And if you can look at your challenges without being consumed by them, you will find a new level of freedom. Awareness, energy, and sensitivity. I've spent decades immersed in different traditions, practices, and teachings, exploring how humans interact with their own energy. Breathwork, meditation, martial arts, yoga, each of them serves one purpose: to raise awareness. Because if you are unaware of your inner world, life controls you. Emotions control you. Triggers control you. You become reactive instead of responsive. You don't suddenly explode in anger. The flame is lit long before the explosion. The reaction is only the final stage of a process that began much earlier. The key is catching the flame at its spark, not when the whole house is on fire. To do this, you must become sensitive to your body, your breath, your inner movement. And this sensitivity cannot be developed through thinking. It emerges through practice. This is inner work. Not external achievement, but internal mastery. Not tightening, but softening into awareness. As I've traveled, taught, and listened over the years, one thing has become clear. Most people are not suffering because of outer events. They're suffering because of the inner noise that they have not yet learned to observe. They're drowning not in reality, but in the thoughts about reality. When someone tells me their problem, I don't rely much on the words they use. I watch their body. I observe the breath, the posture, the stiffness in the shoulders, the dullness or intensity in their gaze. The body reveals everything. The problem is not usually what people claim it is. The The real problem is that they are not using their body, their breath, or their energy the way these systems are meant to be used. Our bodies were not designed to sit still for 10 hours a day while our minds run marathons. Yet this is how most people live now, mentally overactive, physically underused. Thought after thought piles up, and because the physical foundation is weak, the mental world becomes a storm with no anchor. A human being is not meant to be a floating head. We were built to move, to act, to breathe deeply, to touch the earth, to exert effort, to rest in harmony with nature. When the body is neglected, the mind becomes unstable. Body and mind are not separate. This is not a spiritual concept. It's a simple truth observable in daily life. Imagine two scenarios. Scenario 1. You wake up, sit in a chair for hours, stare at a screen, eat quickly, go back to sitting, then lie down, repeat. Scenario 2. You wake up, breathe fresh air, stretch your muscles, move your body, sweat a little, feel your pulse rise, let your breath deepen, let your energy circulate. In which scenario does your mind feel lighter, clearer, steadier? The answer is obvious. When the body is stagnant, the mind becomes heavy. When the body is active, the mind is alert and balanced. This is why traditions, whether Shaolin, yogic, Buddhist, Sufi, or indigenous, have always combined movement and stillness, strength and softness, discipline and surrender. Humans need both. Without physical grounding, the mind floats into worry, overthinking, fear, and confusion. So often, people tell me their suffering is emotional or spiritual, but the root is physical. Their breathing is shallow. Their posture collapsed. Their stomach tense. Their shoulders locked. Their legs weak. Their energy trapped. When the body is misused, the mind compensates and overcompensates. Awareness begins with the body, because the body is the bridge between the external world and the inner world. The truth about impermanence. Another truth we must confront is the one we avoid most. You and I do not have unlimited time. We are temporary. Our bodies are temporary. This moment, this breath, this version of us, it is all passing. In many traditions, including Chan and Zen, there is a simple measure of progress. How easily can you let things go? Not because giving up is spiritual. Not because detachment is a badge of honor. But because ease in letting go shows that your identity is no longer chained to illusions. If you cling tightly to possessions, praise, status, memories, roles, if your heart clenches at the thought of losing them, it means you are still bound. Clinging creates suffering. Attachment creates tension. It's not bad to own things. It's not bad to enjoy your life. The issue is not ownership. The issue is enslavement. If your happiness depends on something fragile, temporary, or external, then your happiness will always be fragile, temporary, and external. Wealth temporary. Beauty temporary. Reputation temporary. Youth temporary. Loved ones temporary. Even the body you are wearing temporary. So the question returns, what of these things have begun to possess you? Letting go does not always mean removing objects or relationships from your life. It often means removing the psychological grip they have on your heart. The nature of suffering. People often ask, what do I do with my suffering? There is only one answer. Face it. We don't overcome fear by running away from it. We overcome fear by entering the place where fear lives. Whatever terrifies you, whatever overwhelms you, whatever sits like a shadow in your mind, that is your training ground. But why do so few people face their suffering? Because two essential qualities are missing. The ability to let go. Many people cling to their pain because it is familiar. They cling to their perspective because it feels safe. They cling to their identity because it has defined them for years. Courage. To face the unknown requires bravery. True courage is not dramatic. It is quiet and steady. It is the willingness to step into darkness without guarantees. Life is 99.9% unknown. We pretend otherwise. We create structures, routines, expectations, illusions of safety. But uncertainty is the true nature of existence. And to discover the fullness of life, to taste freedom, to expand consciousness, one must step willingly into that unknown. Yet humans are not trained for this. We are trained to avoid uncertainty, to seek comfort, to build predictability. This is why personal growth feels like an internal war. Your spirit wants freedom, but your conditioning wants safety. True transformation requires breaking patterns. Breaking patterns requires bravery. Bravery requires letting go. The comfort zone and the path of strength. No one becomes strong by staying comfortable. No one becomes wise by avoiding discomfort. No one becomes free by clinging to safety. Every martial artist knows that pain is not the enemy. Pain is a teacher. When the muscles burn, they grow. When the lungs stretch, they adapt. When the mind confronts challenge, it becomes resilient. Physical skill and mental skill are developed in the same way, by crossing the threshold of comfort again and again. If you avoid suffering, you remain weak. If you run from challenges, your world becomes smaller. If you ignore your fears, they grow larger. The Shaolin path, the warrior path, the path of inner mastery, it is not for everyone, but it reveals something universal. To be free, you must become strong enough to face what you fear. To be peaceful, you must become courageous enough to confront what disturbs you. To live fully, you must step beyond the edge of what is comfortable, preparing for the end while you live fully. In our monastery and in the tradition carried forward, we teach something many find uncomfortable. Prepare for the end while you are alive. Not because life is bleak. Not because we want to make people sad. But because acknowledging impermanence frees you. It sharpens your perception. It clarifies your priorities. It dissolves trivial worries. It anchors you in the present moment. People believe death is the end of the ego, but you don't have to worry about losing your identity. It will dissolve whether you want it to or not. The question is, will it dissolve suddenly, painfully, without your awareness? Or will you begin loosening the grip now, gently, consciously, gracefully? When change arrives too quickly, humans suffer. When change arrives gradually, we adapt. This is why preparing for endings is wise. It is not morbid, it is liberating. Signs of suffering. Suffering has many forms. It is not always dramatic. You can see it in a person's face, in the heaviness of their movements, in the way their shoulders curve inward, in the absence of a genuine smile, in the restless eyes that cannot settle on one moment. There is constriction instead of expansion, weight instead of lightness, tension instead of flow. But to recognize this in yourself, you must look inward with honesty. And honesty requires letting go of self-image. One simple practice is to stand before a mirror, not with vanity but with presence. Look at your eyes, your skin, your scars, your expressions. Everything you see carries a story. Nothing on your body is accidental. Every mark is a result of some action, some event, some moment of your life. To see yourself clearly, you must drop your identity temporarily. Just observe without judgment. Observe without excuses. Observe without fear. The truth cannot be hidden, not from others, not from yourself. As the old saying goes, the sun, the moon, and the truth cannot be concealed. If your past still binds you, you cannot move forward. If old wounds remain unexamined, they remain alive. If karmic knots remain tied, your energy cannot flow. Untying these knots takes time, patience, and courage. Letting go of mental suffering. Most suffering today is mental. People are in warm rooms with food, with safety, yet they're trapped in storms of thought. They relive arguments. They replay mistakes. They imagine scenarios that do not exist. They carry emotional ghosts from yesterday into today. If you can step back into the present fully, your suffering disappears instantly. Not because the world changed, because your attention changed. The memory that tormented you has no power in the present moment. It only lives in your mind. But letting go of thoughts is a skill like learning an instrument or a martial art. It must be trained. It must be practiced. There is a moment in everyone's life, sometimes in childhood, sometimes in adulthood, sometimes much later, when a subtle realization begins to form. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's not some lightning bolt of enlightenment. It is more like a quiet whisper rising from deep within your being. There must be more than this. More than the stress. More than the pressure. More than the constant cycle of wanting, getting, losing, repeating. More than clinging to an identity that never quite fits the way we hoped it would. This whisper is the beginning of inner awakening. It is the first hint that your deeper self is trying to speak. Not the voice of ego that insists it needs more, needs better, needs validation. Not the voice of fear that warns you of everything that could go wrong. Not the voice of comparison that keeps you trapped in the illusion of inadequacy. No, this whisper comes from beneath all of that. It comes from the stillness that has always been within you, even during your most chaotic moments. This whisper is your inner teacher, your true compass, your original nature calling you home. When you hear it, you may not understand it immediately. You may try to ignore it. Many do, but the whisper does not disappear. Even if you bury it beneath responsibilities, distractions, or illusions, it waits patiently, because it knows that eventually you will return to yourself. The first step of inner mastery, slowing down enough to notice. We live in a world that rewards speed. Fast decisions, fast responses, fast results. But speed and awareness do not always coexist. When you move too fast, you miss the subtle movements inside you. You miss the emotional shifts, the energetic shifts, the tension in your breath, the stories your mind is quietly weaving. You miss the chance to catch yourself before old patterns take over. Mastery begins not with force, but with slowing down. Not stopping your life. Not abandoning your goals. Just slowing enough to see clearly. Think of a spinning fan. When it's moving fast, the blades look like a blur. But when it slows, you can finally see each individual blade, each detail, each shape. The same is true for your mind. When it is spinning rapidly, everything looks like a blur of emotion and thought. You can't distinguish fear from intuition, reaction from wisdom. But when you slow down, everything becomes clearer. Awareness is not something you earn. It's something you reveal. The paradox of change. Most people want change, but they want it to arrive fully formed. They want transformation without transition. They want new results without new behavior. They want inner peace while keeping the habits that create inner chaos. But change does not work like that. Change begins with disruption. Not external disruption, internal disruption. An interruption of your patterns. A questioning of your beliefs. A deep look at the mechanisms running your life behind the scenes. You cannot become a new version of yourself while clinging to the old one. You cannot walk a new path while dragging the weight of your past expectations behind you. And the most surprising part, many people fear change not because of the unknown, but because of losing the familiar suffering they have grown comfortable with. Suffering becomes identity. Stress becomes normal. Overthinking becomes a habit. Tension becomes a way of life. To let go of these means stepping into a space where the familiar walls dissolve. And for some, that openness is frightening. But if you want to master your inner world, this openness is essential. It is the doorway to transformation. the art of observing without interfering. One of the greatest skills you can develop is the ability to observe your inner world without immediately reacting, judging, or trying to fix anything. Just watching, just noticing, just being present with what arises. This is the foundation of every advanced spiritual and practical discipline. Whether you study meditation, martial arts, breath control, or emotional intelligence, it always comes back to the same principle. Observe first, intervene second. Because if you intervene while blind, you cause more harm than good. Imagine a person trying to repair machinery while wearing a blindfold. They may have the right tools, the right intentions, the right training, but if they cannot see, their actions become a wild guess. In the same way, when you attempt to control your emotions without understanding them, your effort becomes reactive rather than wise. Observation gives space. Space gives clarity. Clarity gives right action. Responsibility to yourself. You are responsible for your physical body. You are responsible for your mental health. You are responsible for your boundaries and your energy. No one else can take these responsibilities from you. People may support you. They may guide you. They may inspire you. But the consistent practice of caring for your inner world will always be yours alone. This is not a burden. It is a form of empowerment. Because once you accept this responsibility, you stop waiting for someone else to save you. You stop expecting the world to adjust itself to your needs. You stop hopping for circumstances to magically align so that you finally feel whole. Instead, you realize your wholeness does not depend on the external world. It comes from mastering your internal one. And this mastery is built moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. The path of self-discovery is not linear. People often imagine spiritual or personal growth as a straight line upward, a clean ascent toward a higher state of awareness. But the truth is far more dynamic. Some days you feel expansive. Some days you feel contracted. Some days you feel clear. Some days you feel lost. This is not failure. This is not backtracking. This is the natural rhythm of transformation. Just as the tide moves in waves, your inner growth follows cycles. A period of expansion is often followed by a period of integration. A breakthrough is often followed by a quiet plateau. A challenge often precedes a new level of understanding. You cannot grow without oscillation. The key is not to demand perfection from yourself. The key is to stay consistent, stay aware, and keep returning to your center. Your sense of self will shift. When you begin to deepen your awareness, something interesting happens. Your sense of identity starts to change. The person you thought you were, the one defined by achievements, failures, relationships, habits, fears, begins to feel less solid, less permanent, less you. And as this happens, you begin to experience yourself not as a fixed character but as an evolving consciousness. You see that your personality is not a prison, it's a costume, something you can adjust, reshape, relax into, or release. This is not an intellectual idea. It is a lived experience. You are not just your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. You are not just your emotions. You are the space in which they arise. You are not just your past. You are the awareness that has witnessed every moment of it. You are more than the world has taught you to believe. By this stage in your journey, you may realize something profound. You are far more capable, far more powerful, and far more expansive than the world ever encouraged you to be. Not powerful in the sense of dominance. Powerful in the sense of presence. A presence that cannot be shaken by external noise. A presence that remains stable even when life becomes turbulent. A presence that allows you to respond with clarity instead of reacting with fear. This presence is your true self. not the fragile self shaped by society, expectations, labels, and past pain, but the quiet, steady, spacious self that has always existed beneath the surface. Your task now is to reconnect with it again and again until it becomes your natural way of being. Part 4. The weight you do not need to carry. There comes a point in your spiritual evolution when you begin to question the burdens you carry, not the obvious ones, like physical tasks, schedules, deadlines, but the inner burdens, the invisible weights, expectations that were never yours, stories you inherited, roles you felt obligated to perform, a version of yourself that no longer fits the person you are becoming. We carry these inner weights with quiet resignation, believing we must hold them, believing that letting them go is somehow irresponsible or selfish. But what if the opposite is true? What if the heavier burden is pretending to be someone you are not? What if the real responsibility is honoring your newly awakened self? Many people live with a sense of quiet suffocation, not from external pressure, but from internal misalignment, from living a life that does not reflect who they truly are. Inner mastery requires the courage to put down what no longer belongs to you. It requires acknowledging that you don't have to carry the emotional baggage others left in your hands. You don't have to continue performing patterns that were taught to you by people who were themselves wounded, confused, or unaware. You don't have to keep replaying habits that drain your vitality simply because they are familiar. You don't have to keep reshaping yourself to be digestible, acceptable, or comfortable for others. You are allowed to evolve. And when you do, your life begins to open like a window in a long-sealed room. Fresh air rushes in. Clarity flows. Old shadows dissolve. This is what letting go feels like. Not losing something, but returning to yourself. Letting go is not weakness. Letting go is alignment. Not running away. Returning home. Not erasing your identity. Reclaiming it. When you release what weighs you down, you make space for what is truly meant for you. Your healing will disturb the unhealed. There is something else you must understand. Your growth will make others uncomfortable. Not because you are doing anything wrong, but because your evolution disrupts the roles they are used to. A version of you that tolerated everything no longer exists. A version of you that accepted crumbs of attention no longer exists. A version of you that lived on autopilot no longer exists. Some will not know how to relate to this awakened person you are becoming, and that is okay. You are not responsible for maintaining others' comfort at the cost of your soul. Your responsibility is to your truth. Some people will support your evolution. Some will resist it. And some will quietly drift away. This too is part of the path. Not everyone walks with you to the final horizon. The art of internal stillness. Stillness is not the absence of movement. Stillness is the absence of unnecessary struggle. When you stop fighting yourself, when you stop doubting every step, when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, a powerful stillness grows inside you. This stillness is not passive. It is alert. It is alive. It is intensely aware. Stillness is the space where intuition speaks loudest. It is the space where clarity arises. It is the space where fear dissolves. Most people misunderstand stillness. They think it means doing nothing. But stillness is not inactivity, it is harmony. Harmony between breath and body. Harmony between thought and intention. Harmony between who you are and what you choose. In true stillness, life becomes simple, not empty but unburdened. Your mind becomes a clear sky rather than a storm. Your emotions become waves instead of tsunamis. Your body becomes a temple instead of a battlefield. Part 5. Becoming the observer of your own life. There is a moment in your journey when you shift from being inside your thoughts to watching them from above. This is one of the most transformative thresholds a human being can cross. In this shift, something extraordinary happens. You stop being your mind and begin witnessing it. You step out of the constant stream of thinking and become the observer. This observer is calm. This observer is neutral. This observer is wise. This observer is your true self. From this vantage point, things that once overwhelmed you now become manageable. You see emotions for what they are, temporary currents. You see thoughts for what they are, mental weather passing through. You realize that you are the sky, not the storm. And as the observer, something else becomes clear. Most of your suffering never came from events themselves. It came from your unconscious reactions to them. Once you can observe, you can choose. Once you can choose, you can direct.